Back here on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, and it's our pleasure to be joined by Brandon Steiner. He is the founder and former CEO of Steiner Sports, inspirational speaker, author, founder, and president of Collectible Exchange and the Steiner Agency. You can find him on Twitter at Brandon Steiner. Brandon, thank you so much for doing this. How are you? And I hope everyone is safe in quarantine. We're 3 months and counting without sports. Have you missed them as much as you thought?
Yes, I do. I miss it. Although it's been a nice diversion to not, when you do what I do, it's like, it's a huge responsibility. People always ask me about what it's like to work with all these players or teams. And it's awesome, but it's a huge responsibility because you really have to keep up with it in a different way than just being a sports fan. So I don't miss the responsibility part of it. Like, you can't be engaged with certain players and teams and not follow them and talking to those players and teams the next day and not know something bad happened or there's an unbelievable moment in time and that kind of thing.
And Brandon, appreciate you coming on with us. And in this quarantine, in these last 3+ months, for you personally, have you developed any new hobbies? Have you found out anything new about yourself, about your family? It's tough to be quarantined with everyone. How have you passed the time by without sports? Because for a lot of us, it's been difficult not having that to lean on going into the spring, going into the summer with playoffs, the beginning of baseball.
Well, first of all, this conversation is definitely a highlight of my week. Anybody that's willing to listen to me that I could talk to, I'm extremely grateful. I have no idea what I'm doing with my time. My dog came up to me the other day and asked me for more space in our relationship. That I was crowding her because she hadn't seen me around this much. And it's, but it's been tricky. I'm not a big hobby guy. I do have a basketball court in my house, so my jump shot is phenomenal. If I could walk on a Fordham, I would. I could hit the three, bam. I probably take about 300-400 shots a day. So I got that machine, so I'm feeling really good about it. But to really answer your question, like when I went into this virus, I definitely walked over a lot of bridges, thinking about, the best spot maybe to jump. I'm like, I don't know how this business is going to make it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know when this is going to end. And I was down. I had a lot of anxiety, and then I got a grip on myself, and I was like, wait a minute. And really what the wait a minute was is that I realized that when I went home, and many other people went home, their moms, their wives, their husbands, we started cleaning out closets. We started cleaning out basements, garages. And, Collectible Exchange, my new company, is a platform. It's like eBay where people buy and sell collectibles. So all of a sudden, we have over 60,000 items on our platform. And the last 60 days, it's just been booming. People are just coming out of nowhere, putting their stuff up on the site. And it's been active as far as people buying because there's a lot of our fans and collectors without sports, as you mentioned. They're home bored. So they're going, they're collecting, they're buying, they're selling. So there's a lot of activity in my category. And then on the agency end, the other company I have, the Steiner Agency, we had a ton of stuff canceled, which, again, I was thinking about jumping off the bridge again. And then all of a sudden I started doing virtual talks, putting athletes on. Instead of them appearing at a particular company, they were going virtually and appearing for a company, motivational, inspirational, to promote a product. And we had a great boost these last 2 months on that. So sometimes, you may feel like, the adversity is starting to climb, but then the opportunity, sometimes follows right after it. And a lot of times you got to blow up what you had in order to make room for what what you need to make happen. So it's been a blessing on that account. And I've really tried to stay positive. And I recommend this to anybody listening is this is a great time to connect with people that you maybe don't always get to talk with and make the time to have those conversations with friends, clients, or potential people you want to maybe work for one day. These are the time when you have time to go look at companies, learn about companies, figure out how you can help companies. I would go on people's websites, particularly charities, because I knew in March, everybody was trying to raise money and everybody was in a little despair. And I would call up the CEOs of these charities and give them advice about how to change their emails, change certain things on their web. Like there was this food bank and they were asking for a donation of $25, $50, and $100. And I said to the lady, I said, if you ask for a small donation, you're going to get a small donation, generally speaking. Let's take the 25 off. Let's start the first donation at 50, the second one at 250, and then the third one at 1,000. If someone wants to donate in between, they'll find their way. But ask for 1,000, and all of a sudden she started getting $1,000 contributions, which I was the first one to give her 1,000 because I was going there to give her $1,000, and I'm like, I want to give 1,000, and the most I could donate here is 100. That doesn't make sense. But so I started going to different websites and trying to see how I can help them with marketing and promotional angles. And I think even if you can't help yourself, when you get into tough times, you know, I think you get a lot of joy and fulfillment when you at least just try to go help someone else.
So, for those who may not be familiar with you, you have a TED Talk, and in that TED Talk, you talk about a couple of things that I found of particular interest. Your first idea is never your best idea. And then your paper route as a kid, setting the stage for understanding the needs of your customers and really almost being a catalyst for your future business endeavors. Could you just talk a little bit about the first idea not being the best idea and how that sets you up for the rest of your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is you come up with a good idea, and your first instinct is to now try to come up with another idea instead of taking that first idea and making it better. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. You know, if you hit something, your best bet is to take what you hit and really drill down. And nothing extraordinary really happens by trying to float around and trying a bunch of things. Extraordinary behavior starts with somebody drilling down, becoming an expert and knowledgeable about that one thing. If you think about the people that are most famous and the people that are known for something are people that took an idea, improved it, and just kept drilling down till there's possibly nowhere else to go. And it's amazing what they came up with. But actually, when you really think about it, it was just obvious. So, you know, a lot of my great ideas, or at least that's what they say, these great ideas are just obvious ideas that were started with good ideas. So I always say, take your best and make your best better rather than spreading yourself out. You don't need another building. You need to kind of build stronger and build on top of the building you already have. And I think I've done that in many cases. In the TED Talk, if you get a chance to watch it, you know, I talk about the fact that we had too many balls in our inventory. And then the inventory manager comes in, he says, you know, we got too many balls. We got a problem. So I go, we got balls. And I did a billboard on 95. It said, we got balls. It was a picture of a bunch of balls. And then my inventory manager comes back in. He goes, you know, we got footballs. We got basketballs. I said, we got big balls. So I did a second ad in the paper and a second billboard. Said, you know, we got balls. We got big balls. Now, a lot of people would have been ecstatic about that. You know, they finally got, you know, a place to sell your balls. And we were selling a lot of balls at that point, and things were really cranking, and it was a really good tagline. But I started thinking deeper, started thinking the next thing. I'm like, what am I missing here? What else? What's going on here? And then I realized that people need a place to put their balls. You know, where are you putting your balls? If you're selling all these balls, where are these balls going? And everybody knows that, you know, where you put your balls is important. So the next was, we got balls, we got big balls, and we got a place to put your balls. And that was a beautiful line of cases that I created for people to put their balls, because I realized that some of these balls were expensive. And, you know, so we came up with an upscale line of balls. Now, I used to put them in these little cubes. I don't have the example right here now, but I used to put them in these cubes for $5, and then these glass cases were like 4 times the price and 5 times the margin. So your best idea is never your first idea. A lot of times you got to keep drilling down. And I think before you jump off and want to do something else, is, you know, because you're feeling some confidence is a huge factor in all this. And when you're feeling the confidence, you have the momentum on an idea that's working, stay on top of that idea. Because people that become extraordinary are people that become experts, are able to take things much further than anyone else could take.
I want to transition and get into some of your career and sort of how that began. So you start by working out, you know, you get the sporting club, and that's sort of your first start into this, but you launched Steiner Associates. That's sports marketing company. You're pairing athletes with businesses. Why was that something just that you were interested in?
No, I was desperate. Because what happened was I'd done a bunch of sports bars back in the 80s. This is before you were born. And this is before there were no sports bars. We opened up like really the first electronic sports bar back on 99 Hudson Street. And I worked at the Hard Rock, and I wanted to create a version of the Hard Rock, but in sports. At the time, there were like 2 sports bars in the country, and only a few restaurants in all of Manhattan even had a TV in their bar. You had Bobby Valentine's in Connecticut and the Ultimate Sports Bar in Chicago. So, you know, I'm rocking and rolling. And because it was the only sports bar in New York, along with a satellite dish, which meant you can watch other games from other parts of the country. Remember, back then in the 80s, you watched your game of the week. That was it. So people, players, sports management people would all come to this bar that I was working, this restaurant, And we had this big satellite dish. We had to go kind of work this wheel to get the game on the bird. It took us like 20 minutes to go find the game. I'm not kidding. So that was my entree to meet all these different athletes and players. And what's crazy is a friend of mine came to me and said, you know, we want to open up a sports marketing agency. At that time, there was like ProServe, IMG, 3 or 4 agencies. So I went home. I told my wife that I was going to leave the restaurant business because I was trying to open up my own sports bar. I couldn't raise the money, so I was struggling. And when I went to work, so I took that job. I was like partnered with these 3 other guys. One was an agent, and there was 2 marketing guys. And since I knew all these players, and I show up for work, and the first thing they do is they bring me in the office and say, I can't make you a partner. Sorry, you know, it's not going to work out, but we'll give you that little corner office for $400 a month. So sure enough, I start, you know, doing some restaurant consulting. I'm doing a little this, that. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying to figure it out. And about 3 weeks later, these guys are like, by the way, we're moving. I said, where are we going? They said, no, we're moving. We'll come back, and we're not sure we have room for you right initially, but we'll call you in a few weeks, and you'll move with us. Of course, still waiting for them to call. That was like 30 years ago. And but they left the phones on. So I started getting some calls for sports marketing, a couple things, and I was like, yeah, I think I could do this. You know, I wanted to get into this anyway, and I started working on some sports marketing stuff. And then my first project was like a Papa Shot contest around the country with Rick Barry and Cuddy Sark. And that's how I kind of got going. I mean, I was just one-man show with an intern, a receptionist that 5 other companies shared, and at $4,000 a Mac Plus and a printer, man. And it wasn't easy, especially going home and telling my wife that company, you know, those guys that I was going to partner up with, you know, duped me and left me for dead. I was like, all right, I'm going to do the best I can. And that's what I did.
And Brandon, when you first became the founder of Steiner Sports Memorabilia, can you just give us, what was that first piece of sports memorabilia that you collected, that you got, where you felt like, all right, this, where we can go somewhere, we can take off with this business and we can do something big here?
I never started the collectible part of the business thinking it was going to be a brand. It was always going to be an extension to the B2B business. And like I said earlier, your first idea is never your best idea. Here I am, I'm showing up with athletes, and I show up with a dozen footballs, some helmets, some photos. And then before you know it, we got a few extras of these, a few extras of those. I start selling them to a couple local stores, and then things start materializing. It really is by more accident and mistake than to give myself credit, because it's not really like that. What ended up happening was, for all you New York fans, is I'm on Metro North, and my mom had just died in '94. It was right around this time of year, and I was really depressed. And you know, I hate taking the train, and I didn't have enough money to buy a car. And as I got on the train that day, there was this woman arguing with her husband, probably getting divorced. This other guy was belching and farting. This other person was eating breakfast, smelled it. And I was like, I got to get off this train. I got to get off this train. I cannot take this train every day. It's not working for me. I hated the fact that I had to catch a train, go by schedule, because I'm a very rogue kind of, I don't follow a schedule well. There are days when I pick my head up at 9 o'clock at night and I never realize where the day went. And at first I got to catch a train, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to, you know, going back to, you know, doesn't matter where you're at, it's what you want to accept. So I'm thinking, like, I got to get off this train, and I look down and I see Mark Messier holding up. Matter of fact, if you can see that photo there, I see Mark Messier. You see that? Mm-hmm. It says, "We did it." So I see this Mark Messier photo, that photo exactly, it's right behind me. And I said, you know, if I could get Mark Messier to sign like 15,000 of those, "We did it," Mark Messier, I know I could sell those. It took me 3 months to track Mark Messier down, his lawyer, uncle, brother, sister, accountant. I signed him up to what ended up being my first collectible deal. And sure enough, I sold a gazillion of those photos, just like you saw it. That's like one of my first collectibles right behind me. It's funny, I just have it there. And very, very soon after, because my wife was kind of supporting us at the time, I made enough money to buy a car, and I got off the goddamn train. And, you know, so sometimes your level of non-acceptance really leads to dreaming big and leads to some hostile. You need to be a little hostile. You need, you know, when you're hostile, when you're like in a complete, there's nothing going to stop me. I'm like, I was on a hostile, in a high level of non-acceptance on that train. And I came up with a solution, which was signing Mark Messier up, selling those things, making a boatload of money, and then going to buy my Lexus. And that's okay sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to just stick your head out the window and say, you know, I just want to make a lot of money. But when you're doing that year after year for many years, and that's what you're doing, all is just worried about the money, and you're not worrying about your freedom, your creative freedom, and doing what you ultimately really want to do, then you're on the wrong path.
So fast forward, your company reaches an agreement with the Yankees in 2005, a franchise with perhaps the most history in all of sports. What was that experience like, particularly as they close out the old stadium in 2008?
This relationship did not happen overnight. I mean, Randy Levine, who's the president, still the president, and like Alon Trost and Marty Greenspan. And I mean, there was a lot of eyes and a lot of eyes to dot. There's a lot of detail to get that relationship off the ground. But I think the main important thing when you come up with a new idea or a good idea is, what's your intent and who's that idea really for? Back against the money, if your idea is just strictly based on money, great brands generally won't buy into that. And that's what people really didn't understand about the Yankee Steiner thing. Initially, it was really about how do they protect their customers that buying a lot of this kind of stuff so that years down the road with the Jeters and Marianos and all this stuff that they knew they had, how do they put out in the marketplace and make sure that their fans were safe? I think the Yankees, what's great about the brand is they never get confused about what's important. They know where their bread is buttered, which is putting the best possible field on the team and making sure that everything they do, understanding what the ultimate effect is going to be on the fan and what's the most value they can provide for that fan on a day-to-day basis. It took 2 years to do that deal, and it was a game changer. And I give the Yankees a lot of credit for having faith in me and taking the time to orchestrate the deal, not only just based that we eventually figured out we could make some money, but making sure that it was done for the right reasons. There's a lot of aspects to that deal. Very proud of it because it was an industry game changer, which I've done several times with the business. And I think when you go into an industry, and this is a good message for your listeners, I think when you go into business and industry, you have to go in with the intent to make it better. You have to go into your business every day and how you can make your business better and how you make the industry better.
And Brandon, you mentioned that word brand. And aside from creating collectibleexchange.com, you also launched the Steiner Agency, which connects these athletes with firms for promotional events. In your opinion, how important is it that athletes look to expand their brand and to test their value off of the court, off of the field, especially in this age with social media and the numerous platforms that an athlete has to market and brand themselves?
Well, I think it's important, but I also don't think it's important to many athletes because just because they're making a lot of money, they get confused about the fact that just because you're making a lot of money and there's a lot of cameras in your face, at the end of a 48-minute contest, doesn't mean that you're building your brand. And I think a lot of them don't understand that yet. What I do like is that a lot of them do protect their brand. They may not do anything much or as much as they should to build their brand, but they understand the responsibility that comes with it. And that's the difference between where I stand now with a lot of players versus 30 years ago. I think the athletes understand their brand. I think they understand the accountability. I think there's a lot of pressure and time commitments on players that put them in an awkward spot about how much more time and effort they could put into the business part of all this. And it definitely pushes players away from it, saying, I'm making all this money. This job is relentless, and it is. It's a 12-month-a-year job. There's a lot of requirements that teams give players that are above and beyond between the lines. So it takes a special player, and it's not for everybody to really go and build your brand outside. It's a lot of effort, and it's not for everyone. What I respect about the players is that they understand the accountability, and they just won't jump into anything and everything so easily. They know that. I wish that players would do more of the work, especially earlier on, and really manicure their social media, manicure what they want their brand to really represent and mean, so that when they finish playing, they have something. I just wish the players had an opportunity to go to school without it being a classroom, without chemistry and calculus and all this crap that the average Joe doesn't even want to go to, let alone these athletes. And I wish they could take classes to understand how to really build brands and how to build their brand and a lot more stuff about athletes' social media and about stuff that they're going to be dealing with over the next 10 years so that they can, at least gradually over the course of time, understand what to do and not to. And unfortunately, not a lot of those programs exist.
So you've mentioned a relationship with Mariano Rivera. How did that come about, and what is he in your interactions dating back to when you started with the Yankees? What has that meant to you?
Which, by the way, we have to mention this, that any one of my 3 books through July 15th is free on Collectible Exchange. And I highly recommend picking one of them out and reading it, because any one of them will be tremendous motivation for you. But anyway, in my last book, I talk about this, but, you know, Mariano's been an incredible friend, and he's been an incredible part of my business endeavors over the last 20 years. He's taught me a lot about God, a lot about having faith, a lot about a bunch of principles that I never really thought about. And so I'm very grateful. And I've been able to make a lot of money with him and help him build his church and help him build his foundation. And now he's building a learning center up in Westchester, New Rochelle. He's a committed, fully engaged New Rochelle and Westchester guy. He's definitely one of a kind. There's no question. I've never met anybody like him who's just committed to helping people, helping children, helping people that need help. You know, you see these big name athletes. I mean, Mariano could run around the country, just make money every day and live off his Yankee fame and baseball fame. And I have to beg him to get some time every month to do that, because his main focus every day, and it has been since the day he retired, and even before he retired, is helping people. And he is in the trenches doing it. I mean, he's barbecuing, he's running these health fairs. He's in all these different communities and groups, you know, to help minorities and kids that need direction. It's just amazing. I've never seen anybody more committed, who could be just on easy street and just refuses to take it and just commit his life to helping people. I would say helping people is not a burden. It's an opportunity that leads you to share joy. And I think he's somebody that follows that to a T. But he is a unanimous Hall of Famer. He is the greatest closer of all time. And I have to remind him of that. I know that sounds kind of weird after, you know, you are great. And I think he understands the responsibility that comes with that. He just doesn't want to dwell on it. Like we went into a Chick-fil-A the other day. It was like a month ago. You know, we go to this Chick-fil-A. I mean, it was pretty cool. And he's like, we walk in there, the lady's taking his order, because I had really not been to a Chick-fil-A. This was like in March, actually. So we go into Chick-fil-A. I'd never really been in there, because I was going to say, we're in the car. Tell me what you want to go get it. He's like, you're going to go get it. No. I'm going to go get it. If you want to come with me, you come with me. So we go into the Chick-fil-A, and he goes in front of the lady. He starts ordering. He's explaining to me how to order the special sauce and all this other stuff. And you can see he's just loving it. And the lady asks him his name. He goes, you know, at Chick-fil-A, they ask your name. So what's your name? It's Rivera, Rivera. I'm looking at him like, so she takes the order, goes, and he goes, I love that. I love that. I'm so happy. Nobody knows who I am here. Nobody's bothering me. You know, there's maybe 5 people online. They hadn't picked up that it was Mariano. He goes, oh, I'm so happy. I just love when people just treat me like a normal human being. And it just made me remember, like, you know, it's great to be popular. I mean, the two hardest things, you walk in a room and everybody knows who you are. And the other hardest thing is you walk in a room and nobody knows who you are. But it's amazing, like, you know, he's always got to be on. There's always people coming at him. And he's extremely generous. But it reminds me, like, it's nice to just be normal and not noticed. And it was just a funny moment. And I've had so many with him that are a lot more interesting than that story. But I think he represents the game. And he's a great, great asset to the Westchester community. I think it's just amazing. And I thank God that I was able to, you know, spend as much time with him. Not for only the celebrity. I still get excited just the fact that, you know, believe this guy, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But the stuff I've learned non-baseball related from him has just been amazing.
He is the founder and former CEO of Steiner Sports, inspirational speaker, author, founder and president of Collectible Exchange and the Steiner Agency. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck with your jump shot.
Thank you, Brandon.
I'll look for you guys on LinkedIn so we get into some more serious dialogue and anyone else. And hopefully next time, you know, what will be great is I hope that I can get into the studio with you guys and do this live, like maybe on the radio when we get Fordham Radio back up and going. But hopefully anybody listening goes to Collectible Exchange, gets a copy of the free book.
Absolutely. You let me know when you want to come into the studio. We'll do it. Thank you so much, Brandon. Back with more one-on-one after this.